So anyway, I'm here to talk to you about textures and how I think they can help to transform an image that is otherwise kind of blah, I guess, especially when you get that flat white sky behind a bird or behind a building, or it's just that it just needs something. Now, what I'm going to talk about is not sky replacement. That's a Photoshop thing. So is this, but that's different. That's a tool that can be used in Photoshop. Um, it could, to an extent, be used with textures, but that's not the purpose of what I'm talking about today. I'm also not talking about compositing in the fact that, cut out this subject and then put it on a layer by itself and then bring up a background and then pop it on top. That's a different skill or different technique. This basically is taking a texture, and I'll explain what textures are, and layering it over top of your image and then using a blend mode, and it covers the entire image. And then you can remove it from areas where you want to remove it. But so I'll be giving you all those steps. In the chat, I am giving you, let me put it here in the chat. This is going out to, let me do a chat so that it goes to everyone. Okay. And here is a link that I have just sent, two links, I suppose, to a free handout that is, did it come through? Let me see. I can't see the chat very well.
Yeah, I'm
It's
not
really
seeing it. I'm
small.
Nothing
not
yet.
seeing it in the cam, in the cam, in the chat. It didn't come through.
All right, let me see. All I see is the to everyone thing. Oh, there, I need to draw this up. There it goes. Okay. All right, there it
Ah,
goes.
there you go.
So there's a free handout. It's on Google Drive. You're welcome to download that. And you may want to, somebody might want to try that out right now just to see if it's working. I think it is. And then there's a free folder of a folder of free textures. These are not textures that I purchased. They're textures that were offered free. And there, I'll give you resources for where you can find free and paid textures, as well as some information on how you can make your own. So I'll try to put that those links again at the end of this in case anybody missed it now, but or in case anybody joins late and then wants to see these resources. I'm also going to be using at times this Wacom tablet. Now this is my little small one that goes with my laptop that I'm currently on. Has a pencil or a pen that you use on here. And this is the easiest way to get really fine into detail if needed when creating a mask and removing textures from parts of your image. So I will be using a Wacom tablet. Also, I'd like to know if anyone here uses Photoshop Elements as your only Photoshop product. Is there anyone who uses Photoshop Elements?
I started out with Elements long ago, but I haven't used it in a long time.
All right. So no one is an Elements user, exclusively an Elements user.
I'd
Okay.
say no.
I'm going to go under that assumption then. The handout has two types of text. Straight text is for Photoshop, directions for Photoshop. And if there's a difference in what you do in Photoshop Elements, that is in italics in the handout. I will not, because there's no one here that exclusively uses Elements. I will not switch over to Elements tonight then to demonstrate there how to use a texture. But if there was anyone in the group that does use Elements, I would make the switch at some point and do it there as well. So just let me know if you think, when we get into this, if somebody says, oh, wait a minute, I do use Elements. I need you to switch it over and show me in Elements. I'd be happy to. All right. Another caveat is there are multiple ways to do everything, it seems, in Photoshop. And you might say, well, I want to open that as a smart object, or, well, I only use the speed keys for Control C and Control V for copy and paste. I know there are multiple ways to do everything, and you may have a way that you're more comfortable with. But the way I wrote this handout, if you follow the steps, you should be able to duplicate what I'm doing here tonight. And then once you've got the hang of it, then you can, start doing it your own way, which is perfectly fine. So, given that fact, there are multiple ways to do just about everything that I'm going to do tonight in Photoshop. Um, I guess I'm ready to start. So I am not following a handout tonight. I don't want to go like, step one, do this, step two, do this, step three, and follow the handout. But everything I'm doing, if you do the handout later on, you will duplicate the kinds of things that I did here tonight. Um, I've revised it so many times, and people have told me I'm stuck on this number. And the other thing is, because this is being recorded, you can always go back to the recording and see what I was doing in the video, and that would help in combination with the handout for what to do. So let me go into a share screen and share, and okay. So I'm going to hide the meeting controls right now because they do tend to float. Hide the floating controls. Okay. And I'm going to go here to my textures presentation, which I have in Lightroom. Oh, well, that's not it. Those are the photos I took today while I was out looking for apples. Okay. So let me go with texture images first of all. So I want to show you some images. See if I can do this. All right. I'm going to go into a full screen. So this is a typical shot taken at Blackwater. There are 3 eagles. I'm assuming the one on the top is an eagle. It was on a foggy day, and typical of the Eastern Shore, you get these flat white skies all the time. So I decided that I would add a texture to this image to make the image a little more painterly. And that's the whole thing. The
No, no,
textures,
no.
I think, make
Yes,
the images
yeah.
look
No, she's a good
painterly.
person, you know.
All
I
right,
like her.
does somebody have a
Mhm.
question, or is that
No, I'll mute them.
okay? Thank you. All right, so here's an osprey on a stick. And there it is with a texture applied. And you can see in this area especially that it looks painted because that's the type of texture that was applied. This this was an old barn that's no longer around. Frederick is getting developed left and right, but I used this texture that has this cracked and painted look just to give it a more vintage or, again, painterly look. There's one with I took in France. That's the same texture on this particular image. This is a train that is in Walkersville, a train station, and I wanted it to have a kind of a vintage, old world look. So that texture was applied. This was a bluebird on a bluebird box, and again, the photo wasn't super sharp, but I added some interest to what was otherwise just a plain kind of flat green background. A marshmallow, the water behind it was just gray, just plain gray. So I added a texture to give it some interest, and then I removed the texture from the flower. This image, let me escape and show you this one briefly. Escape, oh, full screen. How do I do that? Daggone it. I don't want to stop the share. I don't want to leave the meeting. Okay, maybe I can escape now. There I go. All right, this image, if I were to go in here and open it up, edit it in Photoshop, and now I'll reiterate this statement too, this point. When you are opening up an image that has layers, and this one, you can tell it has layers because it has TIFF down here. as far as its file name. When you're opening it and you want to see the layers, you have to click this one, Edit Original. And when you edit Original, it will open it in Photoshop with the layers. So here are the layers. That was the original image, just this red leaf on a branch. Here I made a duplicate of the background. Then I added this brown texture and this mask here and removed, you can see a little black area there. I removed the image, the area, the texture from the leaf, and then I added another texture on it, which I was pleased with that final look. So then I bring it back into Lightroom and do some final adjustments to the lighting there. So these are the steps I'm going to be showing you today. Don't save. Okay, and let me go back to a full screen here. Click full screen. Okay, and I don't know why it's so huge. Let me see what this one does. Huh. All right,
You may
let's
have
go back
changed
to
your
fit.
view options.
I think it's under fit. I think I had to go to fit. Okay, let me try again. Ah, there we go. Okay, now this one was down in near Chincoteague, and it just had started to snow. It really, honestly, was one of these little bursts of flurries that come along. So I used what's called a screen mode here with a black, it looks like a black texture with snow, white snow all over it, and used what's called the screen mode. That's why no snow has been built up yet on the roofs or any of the surfaces. But it was cold that day. Penny was probably along on this trip, I think, and it had just started to snow. So that was one of them. This is an eagle at Blackwater again. So I believe in the subtle use of textures to give that flat white sky some interest. Again, Blackwater. This was in Burkittsville here in Frederick County. And I am guilty of adding birds to my photos, but on this particular photo, I did not have to add a single bird. They were flying like that in a straight line on this October morning, and it was beautiful. But it was a flat white sky, so I added the texture. And here is a butterfly, and again, the background was just kind of gray. So I added the texture and then removed the texture from the butterfly's wings and from some of the white flowers. And an eagle, this I think is a red-bellied hawk, a red-tailed hawk. And again, this texture is that painterly, that painted canvasy look. I'm very fond of that one too. So textures can also be used to obscure things. So I photographed this gentleman in a cafe in France. And of course, there are those lovely trash bins. So I was able to use a texture here to kind of obscure the trash bins and some of the other things, and yet bring back the man and his newspaper and his baguettes with the text, by removing part of the texture. So it can be used to obscure as well. And I think that's that for the images there. Are there any questions so far?
Cam, I have
Yeah.
a question for you. What is your decision-making process when you're looking at using a texture for a particular image? Are you looking at the final process? I know you said like with this one, you wanted to shield yourself away from the trash cans.
Right.
On the other issues, on the other photos, are you looking at in your mind, a finished product, and therefore I'm picking a certain texture?
I just go with what I like. I might go through multiple textures and I'll show you how I'll bring in several and then poke the eyeballs out to get rid of the look and just keep going until I find one that I just like. So it's just strictly what I like. But I am very fond of brown textures, and I just think they come out the best. Um, and I'll be showing you mostly some brown texture applications today. So I don't know. I don't really have any goal in mind other than making the photo look more appealing, and that's what I like.
All right, thanks.
Sure. All right. So let me go back here now and go to the free textures. So these are what textures are. Textures are merely an image. It can be a photograph taken of a tile. It can be taken of wood or brick. It can be taken. Sometimes I do concrete. You can take photographs of things to use as textures. I have a friend who loves to do stucco on walls. So she's always taking photograph of stucco walls. You can photograph canvas. You can photograph marbled paper, or you can create a texture. So textures are strictly images, and it's just a JPEG. Most of these are just JPEGs, and these are the ones that are in the free folder that I'm giving you. So this one it looks like it was a sheet of scrapbooking paper that got photographed. It could be scanned and photographed. This one has some artwork, some floral artwork on the side. Again, I think that's a piece of scrapbooking paper. I like this kind of texture the best because this area in the center highlights the photograph, the subject, and then vignettes around the outside edges. Granted, this is a strong vignette, but there are ways to deal with that. Here's what looks like maybe old moldy paper. And this one, you can see, is canvas. And let me go back to fit. This looks like it was an old cookie sheet or something, metal perhaps, that, who knows, it got torn around the edges or burnished or something, or was maybe torn paper that was laid on a black background. Here's some more. This one was done, looks like it was like a sprayed or spray painted or digitally created to be, foreground and some sky. I'll be using that one later, I think. This one is kind of, you'll see this one, this one, this one. So I took this brown image and through the magic of Photoshop, in a hue change, I turned it green and then I turned it blue. So you can take one texture that you really like and make it multiple colors. Here's another one that looks like plaster or paint on canvas. I think that's not called, there's one called dirty canvas that is in here somewhere that I really like. This looks like it was a piece of tile that was photographed. And again, tile probably, marble maybe, who knows. Some of these were maybe created digitally with a paintbrush in Photoshop. This one I like, it's probably concrete that's all cracked, and then it's been scratched and had some paint applied, either digitally or actually. I have a friend who takes plaster and on wood, and she slathers it with plaster, and then she smears some paint on it, and then she like presses things into it, and then she photographs it, and that becomes a texture. So textures are strictly photos. They're just images. That one has an edge, sort of a frame. This one has a big old blob in it, but we just content aware that out. Just use the healing tool and get rid of that if you don't like that in the middle of your image. This looks like it has grasses. That one has a moon. If you don't like that, you can Photoshop that out too. And these funky circles in here. So all of these are textures that are in your folder. That's the one called Dirty Canvas. That is a favorite of mine, partly because it's brown. And then they're different sizes. And it doesn't really matter what size, it doesn't matter what resolution. It doesn't matter, a lot of stuff doesn't matter because we're going to stretch it and bend it and do all kinds of things to it. Okay, so those are the free textures that you're in the folder that you're going to snatch down. These are my textures, and I'll show you that I have organized them. So I have browns and beiges and blues and blacks and canvas ones and snow overlays. Those are the snow overlays. Looks like you need glasses for that one. Grays and browns. So I collect textures, but then again, the folder I go to the most of the time is my browns. And these are all the browns down here in this folder. So I have a lot of browns. Some of these I purchased, some of these were free. I rarely make my own unless they're in this nature and organic. So this one, I photographed grass and, bark on a tree and the beach and a glass of beer and grasses and what's this? Okay, flowers. Rust on a vehicle. That's drips on something. Bricks with grass growing out. I rarely use these, but hey, they're in my folder. I've got them. That's snow geese. I don't know how that one ended up in there, but it could be a texture. Anyway, skies could also be collected and put in your own folder. So I have a lot of textures that I collect, and I organize them by color. So that's what I like to do. All right, so let's go down here to photos to be used. Okay, so where's that one? That one shouldn't have okay, there it is. So I hope you can see this is a dragonfly, and it's just that's the actual background. And I just felt like this dragonfly could use a little more interest. So he also had a big white spot on his wing over here. So I kind of used the Band-Aid tool there to get rid of it. But the beauty of a texture too is that because you're going to make something look a little bit more painterly, you don't necessarily have to have the sharpest image. It could be used with an image that's not so sharp, and I'll be doing one of those in a minute. But first thing I'm going to do is just right click, edit it in Photoshop. And in this case, because I did edit it in Photoshop, I want to edit it. I want to bring over my Lightroom adjustments with it. So it's going to be edit a copy with my Lightroom adjustments and edit in Photoshop. Okay, so here it is in Photoshop. And a good practice is to duplicate the layer. So I'm going to Command J. If you're on a PC, you would Control J. So Command J and just duplicate the layer. Then I don't always do that, but it's a good practice to do that. All right, let me hide my floating meeting controls again. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to go to the free textures. I'm going to work from this pack because that's what you have, is the free textures. And I'm going to pick up this one first. So, because I like that vignetting that it's got. All right, so there it is. Now, it opens in let me get my notes that I had over here. It opens in a separate window, and there's, again, like I said, multiple ways that you can do these things in Photoshop. You could select all, edit copy, then come over here and edit paste, but I just like to switch to the move tool, and I'm a big fan of the speed key, so I'm going to press V. Oops, guess I better be in. All right, V, which selected the move tool, and all I'm going to do is grab it by the title here in this gray bar and drag it off. And now, because I'm in the move tool, I'm going to slide it over here onto this photo. When you slide it, it doesn't look like anything happens until you let go of the mouse. So I'm going to click and slide over here, and see, just the cursor went over, but now I let go, and you're going to get a couple of warnings. not always 2 warnings, but mostly you'll get 2 warnings. This just means that I don't know exactly what all these mean. Like one might be 72 DPI and the other's 240 DPI. There might be a resolution mismatch. There might be a color space mismatch, like one might be sRGB and the other is Adobe RGB. Who cares? Just say yes and okay. See, here it is with the profile, the color profile mismatch. Just say yes and okay. I call those the who cares questions. Now, here it is, but it's not big enough. So the first thing I'm going to do is snug it over here till I get the pink lines. And then I'm going to Command T or Control T to put the sizing handles on. Now, when you do sizing, and I'm going to stretch it here, it is stretching it proportionally. And if I were to stretch it to here, I'm not getting the whole image selected. So when I stretch, I hold down the Shift key while I'm doing the stretching, and that allows me to stretch it wherever I want it. So now I have it centered over top of the image, and I click the OK. So there it is. And you can't see the dragonfly until we start over here with the blend modes. Now, this panel right here that says normal, it is really the blend modes. And you can't really tell that until you hover your mouse long enough where it says set the blending mode. So it's not labeled. So you click this down and we start to go through the different blend modes. Darken, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just go down one at a time. And you'll see the different blend modes and what it does. It does some pretty horrible things to this poor dragonfly. All right, so as we go through, we're going to get to the difference one. Woo, there's that jewel toned. It looks pretty weird in that blend mode. But, you know, if you like that, go with it. Anyway, the ones that are used most frequently are going to be multiply, overlay, and soft light. Those are going to be the 3 that you will rely on. And multiply is the most commonly used one of all. So it's pretty dark. But we come over here to the opacity, and now we can pull the opacity down on that layer. So here we see the difference, and I kind of like the look that's going on there. That is the simplest use of a texture. I am not going to remove it from the rest of the dragonfly. I don't think it needs it. I think it's fine. It's not interfering with any details, but overall the image is dark. And I'm going to fix that when I take it back to Lightroom. So I kind of like that one. And I could try a different one, but I'll be doing some different ones and some multiple ones later. But, well, maybe why not do it right? Let me do another one. Okay, so I'm going to poke that eyeball off right now. And let's go get another one. File, open. And let's pick a blue one. Let's pick this teal blue one. Okay, so it opens in a new tab. I'm still in the move tool. I drag it off, put it in the middle, and drag it over and say yes. See, you don't always get the 2 messages. Sometimes they already were matching. Now, this one's much larger. So I have to do Command T to put my handles on. And unless somebody else knows how to do this and make it fit automatically, I just keep dragging it until I can get it all visible. Hold the Shift key down and stretch it over here and say okay. Now, let's see how that looks. Let's go to multiply, overlay, soft light. That's not so bad. And we can change the opacity on it. Let's leave it where it was. What if we turn this layer on and pop that one above that one? or popped this one above that one. Sometimes changing the position of it makes a big difference. And what if we took this one and did that as an overlay? And then what if we pull the opacity down? So you see, you can go multiple ways just playing with a variety of textures. So do we like that one? Or just this one? Or none of them? Let's just say we like all of it. What the heck? So we're going to file, save. And it's all going to go back into Lightroom now with TIFF appended to the end if it was a JPEG to begin with. So we're going to close that. Then don't save this texture. And here we have it in Lightroom. Now it is kind of dark compared to this original one. So I'm going to go into the develop module, and at the develop module, the easy way is just to hit auto and see what it does. Worse. So I usually just drag the white slider over to bring all of this back up. Drag the white slider over, maybe drag the exposure up a little bit. And there we have a use of textures. It may not be wonderful, but you have multiple options for how to go about this. All right, let's go to this bird. This little bird is grainy. I mean, really grainy. Look at that. It's terrible. I probably shot that in fog. I'll make that be my excuse. Or maybe I shot it at 6400 ISO. So anyway, this is kind of one of those accidental shots, but I like the shot. It's a sweet bird. And it was probably, I don't know why it was so white back there, unless it was in a snowstorm, because it might have, that might be snow up here. I'm just going to say it's snow up there. All right, so let me go back to fit now. But I like this sweet bird. So, because it's not worthy of printing the way it is, I'm going to add a texture to it and make it look more painterly. So right click, edit it in Photoshop. And I'm going to edit with Lightroom adjustments. And it's going to beach ball on me. Okay, so file, open, and this, again, I'm using the free textures. And what do I have? Let's see. I had one picked out, and it looks like they've all swapped positions here. Is it this one? No. Go to file, open. Sparrow tile above green. Above the tile above green. This one? Yeah, they all shifted positions, I guess. Oh, that's not bad, but that's not the one I wanted either. Sorry, when I was writing my notes and practiced all of this, it was, shoot, it's a tile. Okay. Did I open that one already? Probably. Yeah, what the heck. We'll just go with this one. All right. Now I'm going to move this over here. Yes, and okay. And then it's too big, Command T, and I'm going to move it down until I can still see it, and then move it down, and then come here. All right, and then hold the Shift key down and come here. All right, and then say OK. Now, let's go to the blend modes. That's not too bad. All right, so I like that one. And I can change the opacity on that a little bit. I believe in more subtlety than less subtlety. But in this case now, I want to take some of this texture off the bird and bring the bird back to a little bit brighter. So what I'm going to do is put a mask on. So I'm going to come down here at the bottom of this panel and click the mask icon, and it puts a mask next to this texture. This white mask is revealing everything that is in this panel right now. It's still there. So it's a white mask, and we have to paint with black paint. So on a white mask. This was a concept that just took me years to understand. Why do they call it a mask? Why do we paint with black on white? Why? I just had to go through it multiple times till I finally got the hang of this and understand that this is like a transparency right now that's laying on top of here. And we're going to take some scissors and cut out the part that we don't want to be covered by the transparency. That's the best way I can think of it. So over here, my colors are showing gray and white right now, and we want these colors to be black and white. So the best way to get the colors to be black and white is to hit D for the default colors. Now they are black and white with the D key. But if I want black on top of white, because I do, so that I can paint with my brush, I want black on top, you just hit X, and X will reverse the color. So D is for default colors, X puts black or reverses the position of them. Now I'm going to pick B, press B for a brush. And my brush right now is a soft fuzzy brush, and it's at 200 pixels, I guess, 200 wide, whatever that is. And that's a little bit big for getting down here, let's say on the tail and stuff like that. So I'm gonna reduce the size. I like to use the bracket key on the keyboard to tap, tap, tap it smaller. And I'm also going to bring the bird up a little bit larger. So now I have this size, and it's gonna fit okay. Let me tap it a little bit smaller. All right, now, if I were to paint with black paint on top of the white right now, it's pretty harsh. It really brings all this bird back out. So I'm gonna undo what I just did, and I'm gonna, oh, that was at 82%. Let me go up to 100%. 100% opacity, and if I were to do this, it comes out pretty harshly. Removing 100% of it. So I'm going to back this off to about 80%, remove what I just did, and I'm going to come in here now with a soft fuzzy brush at about 60%, let's say, and start removing. Now, as I start removing, you will see in the mask on the right of the layers panel, you will see the black starting to develop over there. Actually, it's going to be kind of gray. You know, I keep losing my mouse. Now, see, I accidentally hit right here. Command Z to undo, undo. And I'm having trouble seeing the circle. I'm going to go back to, oh, that's because I have the Wacom tablet sideways, duh. Maybe this will help. Okay, there's my mouse, right around the eye right now. So I'm just going to start painting here, close around, and just remove some of the texture off of the bird. All right, so I'm going to slide, slide, slide here, and get some in the wings, and come down here to the tail, and over here, and go oops out here. And if I oops out there, all I have to do is reverse my colors, X, put white on top, and just paint back over where I oopsed. So I can do that and bring it right back. So you can see, oh, it's at 80% or whatever, 60%. So I'll go 100%. You can see it disappearing from the mask where I did the oops. All right, so now I'm going to reverse my colors again, and I'm going to come over here and Alt or Option click on the mask. Option click. And you can see where I have been painting. Now, because I'm using black, at 60%, every time I do a stroke over top of another stroke, it gets stronger and stronger. And it keeps repeating and repeating. And so some of this is going to be very uneven. Not on this bird, it's got a lot of colors, but I'm going to completely, this is something I learned recently and I love it. I'm going to completely ditch this mask. Let me option click again. I'm going to ditch the mask, delete the layer mask, and I'm going to start again with a new mask. And this time, instead of painting with black paint, go back up to 100%. Instead of painting with black paint, I'm going to paint with gray paint. That reduces the effect right off the bat of using black paint, where it can really be harsh and you have to reduce the opacity, and every time you do another pass you're adding layers and it gets uneven. Now I'm going to paint with gray paint, and I am at 100% gray, and you can see it is removing, and you can see it build up over there on the mask. You can see the gray happening as I lift the mouse, and as I come down here on the tail, etc., etc. And then I'm going to option click, and you can see where I can fill in, and see it's not duplicating in there. I'm not getting like blacker and blacker areas. So I really like using the gray paint instead, and I can probably pick it up in here, option click, and I see I can make my mouse a little bit smaller. And I'm going to come in here, and I know I need to get the beak area. So I like painting with the gray paint because it doesn't like multiply the effect, and I'm still at 100% opacity on my paint. So now I'm going to shift click the mask will disable the mask, so you can see the effect that removing some of this texture has had on that bird. All right, and then I'm going to bring that back in, and that I think is an improvement over that. Now it's not documentary. It's not going to be accepted in a nature magazine, but it is art and it's fun, and I love the way it to me it just dresses up the image. And I would be happy printing this and putting it in a little frame. Mostly I just post on Facebook though. So when we save, file, save, save, it goes back into Lightroom as a TIFF, and it retains the layers, and it comes back in to Lightroom here, and there was the original. Any questions about that right now? Am I talking? Is anybody there?
I have a question. I have a question for you, Cam.
Okay.
When you were adding the gray to your masking brush,
Right.
were you using the gray because gray is a neutral color?
Only because it's halfway between black and white.
Yeah. The reason why I was asking is just like some people who uses like the gray filter, they use it because it's considered to be like a neutral gray, and it blends better. I was just wondering, was that the reason why you were using it?
No, well, let me see. Let's just try this. I've never done this before. Let's paint with green on the mask or red on the mask and see what happens. Does it remove anything from the mask? If I am painting with red, yes, it does remove from the mask. So I guess just about any color would remove from the mask. I've always heard, black conceals, white reveals, black conceals. But if I were painting on the mask here, it does look like it doesn't matter if I'm using red or if I'm using, let me try reducing the opacity of the paint. Yeah. So it does remove, but does it remove in
But
multiple?
it looks like you're still in your gray colors though.
Oh,
When I look at your brush,
thank you. I should look down there more often. Doing okay. All right. Why is it not? Hmm. Come on. Okay. It's not picking up any other color here for me. I don't know why.
can you hit it again? And so you're picking the red tone, okay, and then hit OK. Yeah.
I'm still
Is
gray.
it maybe it's because you're in the
Maybe
mask?
it's because I'm on the mask. Maybe that's the only colors it will allow is the black and the and now if I were here and I picked a color and I'm on there and I hit there, I would be painting in red.
Yeah, there
Yes.
you go.
It
Yeah.
must be because it was the mask was selected.
Right.
So good things to discover. Now you will make that mistake too in start removing, you think you're removing using your default colors, okay, and we start, doing here, and bam, it's on the painting, so, or on the photo. So you always make sure you're on the mask when you start doing your drawing, to remove part of the texture. Okay, so let me close that and don't save. Okay, so there we are. All right, so now let's go to this image. Now, this image was taken, Robert Sullivan might know where this image is. Maybe not. It's on a side road in Easton, just outside of Easton.
I don't, Kim, but now I'm gonna have to find it. That looks great.
It's on a side road just outside of Easton.
Okay.
And I always have loved this house. It has a good roof structure and it's pretty far off the road. So I zoomed in from the road to take, or maybe I went down the driveway even a little bit, but it's kind of out in the field. And then I always have to add a bird. So I added a couple of birds to this image just because I feel like I just do love adding birds. So there it is. It's got some birds, but it still needs some interest, I think, in here. So I'm going to go out and get a couple of textures. So let's edit this in Photoshop. All right, and we're going to edit with Lightroom adjustments. And for some reason, it loves to beach ball on me tonight. Okay, so File, Open, and let's start with a brown texture just because I do love brown textures. And let's try Dirty Canvas. All right, so Dirty Canvas is opening up and down, portrait mode. So let's move that to 90 degrees clockwise. It makes no difference really. Now, just to show you that there's another way you can do this is select all, edit, copy, or you could use the speed keys, and then you go to the image and edit, paste. And there it is. And we're going to press the V for the move tool, all right, and slide it up here, and then Command T or Control T for the sizing handles, transformation, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to move here. All right, and then do an OK. All right, now let's pick up blend mode of, let's say, multiply or perhaps overlay. All right, I love multiply, so we're going to stick with multiply for now, but we're also going to reduce the opacity on this a little bit. Okay, so you see how the brown now kind of turns gray, and I like the look of that. I like the way, I think the brown textures just really do a nice job because I almost always reduce the opacity on them, and they just give that kind of modeling in the sky. Now I'm going to go find another texture. File, Open, and let's find another texture, and let's do this one that had that little bit of blue sky in it and see what happens with that. And I will move this one over here too. Yes, okay. And snug it up here. Command T. And hold the Shift key. And do that. And then let's do overlay. Whoo, interesting. See, you get so many different looks that just by playing around with layering these, stacking these, you can take this one and slide this one up over that one, and it gives a different look. Bring it back down or bring this one back up. So there's lots of different ways to do these, and you can poke these eyeballs off and go get another one if you think that another one might be better, and play with them. You can do 2 or 3. You can do a different blend mode for each one. Let's try this one. All right, that's more of a marble look. So we're going to move that one over here. Yes, okay. Slide it here. Probably would be better if I flipped it instead of, because of the brown being down below, but what the heck. I can play with it any way I want to. Shift and pull this over here. Come on. Okay. And then let's go to multiply and reduce the opacity a little bit. And let's turn this one back on and maybe make this one be overlay. So that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. It seems to have a couple little funky spots here, like right here. You know, they start to look like sensor dust. So let me turn off these layers and see which one it might be. Aha, it was that one. So I'm going to put my mouse, select that layer. I'm just going to come over here with the Band-Aid tool and pop a couple of those little spots out of there because I don't like those. And then I don't want anybody to think that it's a sensor dust issue. Boy, I had sensor dust issues in Iceland. I'm really glad I brought my cleaning with me, my cleaning kit, because I needed to use it several times. Okay, so this is looking a little moodier now and still a little dark. So we could, now at this point, I'm not using this layer, I don't think. No. So I'm going to delete that layer, just select it and hit delete on the keyboard. At this point, I'm going to take some of the texture off the lower part of the image because I really mainly want it in the sky. So I'm going to add a mask to this layer, and then I'm going to paint with gray just because I like to do that. So I'm going to just select a gray, okay, and I'm going to do my brush tool, B for the brush tool, make sure it's still a fuzzy brush. It's pretty small, so I'm going to make it much bigger. All right, and then I'm just going to start painting with the gray at 100% and just kind of slide it off down here and get rid of some of that texture in this lower part of the image. All right, then I can option click to see, did I get it all? Okay, I missed it here and I missed it there. So, and looks like I missed it a little bit over here on the edges. Okay, so I'm going to option click again. So that looks pretty good. But now I have to do it to this layer too. Or I can hold down the option key and just slide that layer, that mask up there. Bingo. There it is. So now the mask is on there twice. Now I can shift click to disable the mask. So that option click shows you the whole mask in your screen. Shift click disables the mask. So I have to hold down the shift key again. And now you can see that foreground is brightened up considerably. All right, so now I have all of that as my TIFFs. It's going to be a TIFF when I close this. File, save. It's going to come back into Lightroom, close, close. And once it's back here in Lightroom now, I can maybe just move my white slider over here to the right to increase the, to improve that histogram. Or alternatively, I can just click auto and see what it does to the whole image. And I kind of like what auto did to it. So there, I've adjusted that image. And I think that has given some interest or moodiness. And of course, the birds are the right touch, in my opinion. Okay. So, this image. This was taken at Dover Downs, and it was, again, that flat white sky. When I was there at Bombay Hook and coming back into Dover, I saw this cool monster at Dover Downs. So I really like the way this guy looks, but I want to add some dramatic interest to this sky. So right click, edit it in Photoshop. So you should always start with an image that you have already edited. You've already cropped it. You've already, adjusted it, the saturation, taken out whatever, offending little images, which I see something here. It's tiny, but there it is. Probably the edge of a lamp was there. Okay, so now here's my image, and I'm gonna file, open, and let's get kind of a dark, dramatic sky here to use. Let's see. How about that one? Okay. There we go. All right. So I'm going to slide this off. Oops. Move tool. Slide it on. Yes. And okay. All right. Now that one's little, but that's okay. Command T, Shift, and bring it down. Now, you can also make the image larger if you don't want so much of that vignetting or that dark area over your image. You can adjust it by just dragging it larger and then click OK. All right, and now let's go to multiply. All right, that's looking pretty good. We're going to need a mask on this though, for sure. Let me click the eyeball off on that and go get another one. Wait a minute, before I do that, let's look at another blend mode. Color burn, linear, darker color. Go down here to this difference. Now there, there is a mean looking monster with the green eyes. So you can have fun with this stuff. I just think that's a cool look, but I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Click the eyeball off on that for a moment, file, open, and let's get this cracked one. All right, drag it off, move it over. Yes, okay. And Command T, Shift, and up here and do an OK. That looks pretty good. I'm kind of happy with that one. And then let's turn this one on too. And let's come up here and move the opacity down and move the opacity down also. And it's starting to look okay. Now let's add another one just because we can. File, open, and then this one down here, this is a favorite of mine. I'm going to turn it, rotate it, and drag it off and move it on. And then Command T, Shift, and bring it down. And then go to overlay. That's looking pretty good. All right, so I'm going to click these off and stick on this layer for a minute. and do the mask thing. So I'm going to add the mask, B for the brush tool, and I'm going to paint in gray and start removing some of the image from here. So I've got a fairly large mouse and I'm just using my finger on my trackpad right now. I'm not using the Wacom tablet because I'm not really interested in getting fine detail out of here yet. I can always Command plus to zoom in a little bit. I want to make sure that that car and that the eyes, stand out in this image. So I'm going to remove some of the texture from there. And it's pretty subtle here. But as I'm moving around, you can see it starting to build up on the mask to my right, or to the right of this image. So I'm going to remove some of that stuff here. I see I missed something there. It's probably in here. Yeah, okay, and in here. All right, that's pretty good. This mask is looking like the monster. All right, and then I'm going to turn the next layer on, and I'm going to take this mask and Option, slide it up. And then I'm going to take this one and see if I need to do this. Option, slide it up. It didn't have much effect because this is a fairly light color up here, so that didn't have much effect that time. But Command minus minus, I kind of like the dramatic look of that now compared to what, I have to turn that layer on. There we go. That's a dramatic look to that image. And then you can also play around with changing this layer and like dragging it up above that one. What effect does it have? Or putting this one and dragging it up above that one. But this one was better above all of them. So that is better. Now, it also is kind of dark right in here. So I can come back to this layer and Command T and maybe stretch that out and get rid of some of that real darkness in that corner out of there. Maybe that's better, and do an okay there. All right, so I kind of like the look of that, and I'm ready to bring that back into Lightroom. File, save. So when I bring that back into Lightroom and close these, don't save, don't save, don't save. All right, now I can do any adjustments that I need to here, like really increase the texture, the clarity, maybe the saturation a little bit, and maybe, I don't know. I don't really think it needs any more exposure adjustments, but I'm kind of happy with that compared to the original, which I think was just kind of boring. Are there any questions right now? Are there any comments right now? Oh gosh.
Well, Lynn was just
Oh,
Lynn
go
was
ahead, Jim.
Lynn was just saying how the rules of our club for competition, any textures have to be created by the maker of the image.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be able to use any of the ready-made textures. So I guess you're going to go into how we can create our own.
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
Basically, it's going around and photographing stuff, looking for walls of concrete that have like skid marks and stuff all over them, stucco on a wall, canvas, a canvas, buying a piece of canvas, maybe dirtying it up and then photographing it. So if you want to create your own, you could do that. You could spray paint something, and then do it. Another thing that I like to do is I like to defocus my lens, do a manual focus on the lens, focus on, let's say, a field of flowers, and then just rotate the focus till it's all out of focus. And you just have these nice soft color shapes, or color blobs, more or less, and then take the photograph. and you created your own texture. So I'll show you some that might look like that in a minute out of the My Textures area. This bird is one that I also just wanted to show you how I duplicated the layer on. Let me go into, well, here's the original bird right here. This bird was in my neighborhood one day after a rain and drying its wings. And I loved the way it was shot. And I shot this from far away. So I used my 500 millimeter on this and I shot it at ISO 800, and then opened up the shadows and things in Lightroom, and then I added this texture. So I was able to, when I go to Photoshop, edit in Photoshop, again, when you're opening up one with the layers, you want to edit the original. And so there is this texture right here. This texture right here. Turn off the background. Anyway, I forget what my point was here. Here's my mask. I can shift click the mask. And so you can see I really opened it up in the feathers and in the beak too. So I'm going to close that one and don't save. Okay, I'm going to close all of this and don't save. So let's go to this one, this final one here. And this one will have some that, so one day during the lockdown of isolation, it was when iris were in bloom, my friend Marshall and I, right here in this room, I'm at his house right now, set up a little photo booth with this iris and a little burlap and a white drape behind. And so we photographed the iris and then I edited it, but the background is just boring. So I wanted to add a texture. So when I go here, add a texture with Lightroom adjustments. Okay, edit. All right. When I go here to File, Open, let me see if in the free textures there was one. This one. So this, you can see if you made your own with paint, just some paint or chalks or pastels on watercolor paper, you could then photograph that. And that would be a texture that you made yourself. And you can do things, you can do it digitally with Photoshop brushes and paints. You could use a Corel paint program perhaps to create your own digitally whatever, manipulated painted image. So you can pick different paint brushes up here. You know, instead of a soft fuzzy brush, you could do a different brush like this kind of a brush. And then when you have that kind of a brush and you come bigger, 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 you know, and you just kind of paint across. And so I'm painting at 100% opacity right now, but you could paint, and I'm doing it in black, but you could paint it at a low opacity and just kind of, you know, do this thing with different colors and splotch it on in different ways and make your own texture. You could do something with, you know, a lot of paint on the outside edges to create a vignette. So there are different ways to create different looks with paint or actual, digital paint or actual paint. So let me close that and open it again so that I don't save that. And go back to my brush. I'm not using that brush. Let's do that. Where is the soft fuzzy brush? That one. Okay. There. Too big. All right. Let's come back in here. Command ++. Space bar. All right. Also, hopefully your club is not the only place you enter photos. I mean, you can enter photos in a lot of different, like the Frederick Camera Clicks juried competition. We allow anything. But if you, or you could create a category for, you know, something use of textures, or make that a focus in an upcoming meeting, or have a category for that, just to see what people were able to do with textures, just for a one-off time. Or a critique night. So let me go to open up the texture that I just had, which was this one. Open. All right, now I'm going to drag it off. Oops, drag it off, and then move it over. Yes. Okay. So again, this is a huge one now, so I have to go finding the edges and drag it down here. And again, until I get it small enough to put on this image. Getting somewhere now. Okay, shift and down here and do an OK. Now let's do a multiply or an overlay. I kind of like the look of overlay, but I'm going to go to multiply first and just reduce the opacity and see what that does. It's not bad. And then let's go get a canvas. File, open, and get the canvas. Let's get dirty canvas. I like that one. All right, slide that off. And again, it's huge. And I don't know a quick way to make these fit. Maybe one of these, there is, but it's a complicated process and I haven't figured it out yet. And I've figured, why do things the easy way when you can do them the hard way? So come up here, snug it there. Oops, snug it there. I like the pink lines that show up because they show you when you've landed on your target, and then do an OK there. And then do this like as an overlay, perhaps. All right, and that's probably too harsh, so we're going to pull that down some. So that's not bad. But now let's do the mask. So we're going to put a mask on. Let's do it on that layer. It's fine. And I'm going to come back in here now. And now I would pick up and use my Wacom tablet, and I'm going to hit my brush. And the brush is huge, so I'm going to make it smaller. And right now it is at 100% opacity and it is at gray. So I'm going to start using, just pulling off the texture from these parts. It looks like it's going darker for some reason. I'm not sure why, but probably because it's revealing something from the layer below, but we'll get the whole mask thing going in a minute. I don't think I'm painting on the image. No, I'm painting on the mask. All right, so I'm going to remove texture from here. You get the idea that you could go on and on. And remember, if you go oops out here, then you can reverse your colors and come back and paint them back in, and then reverse the colors again and continue painting on the mask. All right, so I'm just going to remove it from some of these areas, and then I'm going to take this mask and Option Shift, Option click and move it down here too. And notice the difference it made just then. So when I Shift click, disable the mask, turn the mask on. Okay, so there it is. And I like the look of that now. I think it's a little bit more artsy. And then I need to adjust the whole thing. Now here's a trick I like to do too. I come here to the top layer. You could have multiple layers if you want. Get away Lightroom. Okay, you can have multiple layers. You could have like 12 layers here, but if you have the top layer selected and you do these 4 keys simultaneously, it's going to create a new combined layer. So if you don't use Lightroom, and some people only use Photoshop, they don't use Lightroom to make the adjustments to their images, they're going to want to do either a curves adjustment or a levels adjustment to readjust the lighting in this photo. So you want a new combined layer. So I'm going to do Command Option Shift, that's with my left hand, and then E with my right hand, and I guess I should be in Photoshop. Command Option Shift E makes a new layer, new combined layer from all the layers below. And then if I were to add more layers above this, I could do a new combined, and it would do a new final layer. So even though these layers are here, they don't show any effect. This is a new combined layer. All right, and I'm going to go here to Image, Adjustments, Levels. And here is the hump of pixels, and here is the little triangle, and you want to bring the little triangle over to meet the hump of pixels. That is a levels adjustment, and just do an OK. Now, like I said, you could have done a curves adjustment or any other type of an adjustment, but that is an easy peasy levels adjustment if you don't use Lightroom. And now this image is, I mean, I would work on it more. This is not final, but this is a quickie presentation. So that's that. So I close it or save it, File, Save, and then close. All right, let's go to see if there are any questions right now before I go into the handout to show you those.
Yeah, Cam, I have a question for you. That last file that you was working on, you said, well, it's not finished yet. I would do some more to it. I was gonna ask that
Right.
question. What more would you do to this particular image?
Oh, I would refine the mask a little bit more. I just did a quickie right there. I would go back in and make sure that I'm getting the areas that I really want to get. I would zoom in some more here and make sure that, you know, I didn't have something funky in, you know, in one of these. Like here, probably in here, there's some ridging going on. I might remove some more of the texture from the leaf, the green parts. I would do a little bit more to it. That was a very quick down and dirty.
Okay.
And I didn't do anything with removing it down here.
Right. Well, I like the fact that you
Yeah.
use multiple textures. Because a lot of times we think about just using one texture and then move on. But I like the fact that you're using like 2 and 3 different textures.
Right. And each one can have a different blend mode too.
Mhm.
And that's the nice part about it. And then, you know, adjusting them up and down, which one looks better on top, and what effect would it have if I slid this one over? So it's all experimentation. There's absolutely no formula. It's what you like.
Okay. Well, thanks. Well, it looks nice. Looks nice.
Sure. Good. Okay, so now let me go into the handout quickly and show you what's here to make sure that there's nothing that I missed. So here it says that if you're using Photoshop elements, you would look at the italics. That is where there might be a difference in the what's done in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, you're looking at the straight text versus the italic text. Whenever there's a PC versus Mac difference, it's Command or Control is shown. So this goes over dragging, opening the image, opening an icon, texture, deals with the error files, the error messages, and then putting the sizing handles on with Command T and holding the Shift key down to add the to do the proportions, to get rid of the proportions. Then changing the blend mode to one of these blend modes. Typically you want multiply, overlay, or soft light. Change the opacity of the texture layer. Repeat the process with another layer or another texture. Switch them off and on to see which ones you like the best. Try switching the positions. Again, you can stack multiple textures and each layer can have a different blend mode or opacity. Then adding the mask, and you can use black paint if you want, but I have here in bold. Since writing these steps, I've also learned that instead of using black solid paint, change it to a medium gray. Then when you overlap areas, the differences are not so harsh. It says I mentioned this in the recording of the August meeting. That's because I did this in August for my club. And then pressing D to get your default colors. X will reverse the colors. If you accidentally selected the image and painted on it, you have to undo Command Z or undo a couple of times to get rid of the paint on your image. You can drag the mask that you just finished by Option or Alt, and then click it and drag it up to the other layer so that you didn't have to go through making the mask twice. And then Shift click will disable the mask, and Option or Alt click will show you just your mask, so you can fix any areas that you missed. When you're done, bring it back into Lightroom, and do a levels adjustment there, usually with the white slider. And then for Photoshop, or for just Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, do a levels adjustment, or if you use curves, you could do a curves adjustment, and then bring this slider, this triangle, over to meet the hump where the mound of pixels begins. When you're going to open a layered image, make sure you edit original, and that will show you your layers again. You can create your own textures, wallpaper, canvas, tile, concrete, bark, sheet music, pages from books. Some people will coffee stain or tea stain paper and then photograph that. Oh, I wanted to show you how you can change the hue too on a texture. Sometimes the texture might be the wrong color. So let's do that real quick. So let me go back to Photoshop and open up a texture like this one. Okay, now we're going to go to make a image adjustments, hue or saturation. Click. This is in the handout, but
Did we lose you? Lost her. Yeah, I think she's gonna re.
Did we lose her, Jim?
Yeah, I think so. I think she's gonna try and sign in again. At least I'm hoping she's gonna try and sign in again.
Yeah, something happened and we lost her.
Yeah, I think she was trying to do too many things at one time.
Okay.
See if I have an email.
Right here.
Hello.
There you are.
No, I'm not. I don't
Oh,
know
you're
what
not.
happened. I totally lost it. It disappeared. So I'm at Marshall's house and he was following along on his iPad. So here I am now on the iPad, talking to you. So I was just doing a hue saturation adjustment when suddenly, bam, I don't know what happened then, but it says unable to access the camera. Okay, so you're just not going to have to see me, but so where it says Marshall's iPad, that's me. So I guess I'll just have to talk to you right now, and you ask me if there are any questions. Oh, gosh.
Does anybody
I've
have any
tried
questions?
hooking back into the meeting. Does it show anybody in the waiting room trying to get in? Is that? Well, there
No,
wasn't a
it's
waiting room,
not
was
set up
there?
that way. Whenever you sign
Okay.
in, you come
I
right
don't know
in.
what happened. Suddenly I was talking to myself. So that's okay. I'm glad Marshall's iPad came to the rescue. So I guess I'm done. I'm glad it happened at the very end
Yeah,
there.
right.
Okay.
No, it's a fantastic
So I hope you
presentation.
give,
Thank you.
oh, thanks. I hope you give textures a try, because they're just, I mean, it's fun. It's art. You know, you may as well have fun with what you're doing.
I know I
So-
learned a lot, but I'm not a
Oh,
real
good.
Photoshop person, so you showed me things that I wasn't familiar with, so.
Oh, good. Well, you know, that's a great way to take the handout and the free textures and practice, practice with, adding a texture, using the paintbrush, putting a layer on, adding a mask. It's just, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it.
Mm.
Okay.
So
Guess that's
Cam,
it.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
And you
Okay.
at your club, do y'all guys use textures and sky replacements in your competitions?
We're not a competition club. So
Yeah, okay.
no, we are not a competition club. We made that decision early on. We know that there are plenty of clubs around that are, like Gaithersburg is a big competition club and they're close to us. So many of our members belong to Gaithersburg Camera Club. So they meet on a different day of the month. So it works out. But no, we are not a competition club. We do some critiques throughout the year, but that's just not an area we chose to go with.
Okay.
So,
Well, I just want to thank you for your presentation. It was really great. I use a lot of overlays and textures and things of that nature. So I think it
Good.
can really enhance the photo and make it somewhat unique from just a boring photo. Yeah.
Exactly. And, sometimes I know when I take a photo with a flat white sky, for example, that I take it anyway. Others might say, oh, the light's not good, so I'm not going to bother. But I know that there are things that I can do with it when I get it home. And it becomes a canvas to build upon.
Right.
So.
Well, thanks
good.
a lot. I appreciate your information. Very nice presentation.
You're welcome. Good.
And again,
Anyone
thank you very,
else?
very much.
Well,
No, I guess we're done.
I guess we're done.
My work here is done.
Well, Cam,
Okay.
that was wonderful. I know I learned a lot.
Good. I'm sorry Diane wasn't here tonight.
No, she's away. She's traveling. She's actually probably doing I think she's doing a presentation as this meeting was occurring. So, no, yeah,
Okay.
she's out, and Sandy's recovering. I thought maybe she could try and listen in at least. Not
Right.
so
Well, she
much
probably used her
participate, but
5 minutes of time, her up time already to go.
yeah.
She couldn't use another 5 minutes to go get her iPad. So
Well, fortunately,
Yeah.
this is recorded, so
yes.
we'll be able
Good.
to replay it and definitely make notes of your pointers. Now,
Right. Okay.
thank you very much.
Sure. Sorry, I
Oh, no
blipped out
problem.
there at the end, but
Yeah, I think you were trying to do a lot of things at one time, and Murphy just
I don't
didn't
know what
wanna play.
happened, but okay. All
All right.
right. Well, good night.
Everyone have a good
You
evening.
can't see me waving. Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Good night.